to me, what separates, the really good guitarist from just the average player isn't how many chords you know or how many scales you know. It's actually being able to take what you already know and making the most of it. And today, I want to look at a very simple chord, and I'm going to show you lots of different things that you can do around this one chord shape. So let's dive in. So I know I mention this all the time, but this A chord is able to be moved up and down the guitar neck, and it's actually one of the easier chord shapes to remember. And the way you do this is to, memorize your notes on the G string. I know I said G string. I thought the same thing you did. Now, if you play the D, the G, and the B string open, you get a G chord. Obviously, on the second fret, you would get an A chord, but as you move this A chord up, all we have to do is follow the dots. So on the 5th fret, you get a C chord. On the 7th fret, you get a D chord. On the 9th fret, you get an E chord. And then on the 12th fret, you start back over with G. So that makes it really easy to memorize as we're moving this A chord around. So let's just take this A chord and move it up to the 7th fret. This would make a D chord. And, if we're only playing these 3 strings, we get a D chord. But sometimes you might want to, play more than just those 3 strings. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. One of the ways that you can do this is to add this note here. It's 2 frets up from where you're laying your finger flat on the A string. So 2 frets up on the A string, and this would be putting the 3rd in the bass. So in this case, we're playing a D chord, so this would be like a D/F sharp. One of the things that's very interesting about this A chord shape is that you can put your finger here 1 fret above where you're laying your finger flat on the B string, and you get a sus chord. So this would be like A sus. And this is the same chord because we're in D. If we come down here and play a D chord and we put our pinky down, that is the same chord that we can make here just by putting our finger down on the B string. Now, another chord that you can make just by adding 1 note is to put your finger 2 frets up on the D string. And now we're playing the relative minor to whatever key you're in. So in this case, we're in D. If we put our finger down there, now we're playing a B minor. And you might think of this as if you were to lay your finger flat across that 7th fret and play this E minor shape, that would be playing a B minor. But you don't have to play, this full chord here. You can just put your finger there 2 frets up onto the D string, and now you're playing your relative minor or your 6th chord, however you want to look at that. Now, while you've got this finger down, if you add that sus note, that 1 fret up on the B string, now we're playing our 4 chord. So you had a 1 chord, your relative minor or your 6th chord just by adding your ring finger, and then you put your middle finger down to add that sus note in there. That's your 4th, and now you would get your 4 chord, or in this case, our G chord. So that's, 3 different chords you can make just by adding 1 finger. So that makes it really easy to be able to kind of stay in this same spot when the chord changes and not have to move all around the guitar neck. Now, if you're playing this 4 chord here by adding these 2 fingers, if you want to play your 5 chord, you just move this 2 frets up, and now you're playing your 5 chord. So pretty much every chord you could want to play in whatever key you're in, your 1 chord, your 6 chord, your 4 chord, and your 5 chord are just all right there together, and you don't have to do a lot of moving around. So that's one really nice thing about this A chord shape. Now, I've mentioned this a lot, and a lot of y'all already know this, but wherever you're laying your finger flat, if you play this pattern, this is your major pentatonic shape. So that means that while you're here in this A shape, moving it around, you can play any of those notes there in that major pentatonic and they'll always sound good. As a matter of fact, Jimi Hendrix would do something where he would play double stops or two notes at the same time. And you would end right here on, in this case, the 10th fret on the E string, 9th fret on the A string. And that is this same shape as making your G chord. So that's one nice way, to kind of end that little run, or just another option of, a lick that you have. Now, how do we actually put this into, real application? How do we actually put this into a song? So let's go back here to the chord of A. So we're going to be in the key of A, and let's say I have a song that say goes A, E, and D. So the song will just sound like this: A, E, D, and then back to A. Well, you can stay right around this A chord shape, play E. Remember, this is your 4 moved up 2 frets, your 4, and back to your A, and you can start adding these little embellishments. So that's one option that you have, but remember, these things are movable all over the guitar neck, so you don't have to stay right here in this spot. What you can do, remember on the dots, we have C, D, and E. So my D and my E chord are up here as well. So what I can do is when it goes to E, I can slide up here and play around in this, move that A shape up here and play around in my E chord. When it goes to D, I have my same options that I had before. So when the chord changes, you can actually move it around to these different spots and you can get some different sounds. So don't be afraid to take this A chord shape, and move it around the guitar neck when the song changes chord. So that might sound something like this. So another option that you have, I hear it in a lot of songs and I use it all the time, is to, while you're in this A shape, kind of hammer on to that 4 chord. So that might sound like this. So I know that sounds familiar, it's in a bunch of songs, but you don't have to just do it in A. You can do this same thing when it changes chords. So into E, so there's another option that you have while you're playing inside of this A chord shape, moving it around the guitar neck. Also keep in mind that when you go to say like the E chord, that same major pentatonic shape, now we'd be an E major pentatonic, but you can use that over the E chord, or when it goes to, the D chord, play it there as well. So any of these little licks, any of these little embellishments, any of these double stops, Jimmy would play, all of these things are options when you're playing inside of this A chord shape. So don't be afraid to move this around, experiment around inside of here. There are a ton of licks, a ton of different ideas, and don't forget you've also got your major pentatonic that you can also play inside of. So play around with this. I really do hope this helps, and as always, if you need something, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you.